Welcome to the Sacred Dance Summit. I'm Leslie Zehr, author of The Alchemy of Dance, Sacred Dance as a Path to the Universal Dancer, and your host for this summit. My guest today is Kumu Karyne Daniels. As a dancer, Karyne has over 35 years professional experience. She has performed extensively and was a featured dancer in the motion picture Dick Tracy with Madonna, a tango dancer in the movie My Blue Heaven with Steve Martin, and a featured go-go dancer at many prominent nightclubs throughout Southern California. As a sacred dancer, Karyne has been asked to perform for churches, ceremonies, weddings, and was featured in Dance Maui Festival 2018 and 2019. She is revered for her poignant solo performances, which are emotional and otherworldly. As a choreographer, Make Movement Matter has always been her philosophy when creating dance art for her clients. I try to find the soul of any song that I'm working with, then I manifest the movement that belongs to that song. By combining 13 years of Polynesian dance training with her unique form of urban expression, she's created a new movement modality called Sacred Dance Path, meaningful movement for women. This dance is a sweet and exotic blend of Polynesian foundations and interpretive sacred dance that creates a mind-body-spirit awakening. Women become enlivened in love and illuminated through this dance. It is the dance of the ALOHA Heartlight. As a teacher, her curriculum is a product of being a spirit-led artist, daily practices, and decades of gathering her dance wisdom through the paths that have made up her life. Karyne's classes are thought-provoking and exciting and serve as a palette for spiritual enrichment. In addition to weekly classes in Maui, she also works with women online in her global ALOHA Hula program. Karyne is available for weekly instruction in person or online, retreat facilitator, speaking engagements, masterclass, and special choreography for sacred occasions. Her motto, sharing aloha, one dance at a time. Hi, Karyne. Welcome to the summit.
Aloha, Leslie. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome, and thank you for joining us. I'm excited to get into our topic for today. This is something that I know very little about, so I'm excited to hear more about it. But maybe before we get into that, you can just tell us a little bit about your journey with dance. I know you had a professional career as a dancer, but how did you actually start with dance in the very beginning?
Well, the very beginning is very interesting. I believe that dance came for me, that dance found me. And I merely responded, and I was the age of 3 when it found me in a Polynesian restaurant in Southern California. And I used to love this restaurant, and I have memories of my dad carrying me in his arm, walking down this path into this Polynesian restaurant that had tiki torches lining the path and palm trees, and I could hear the drum beats and the music, and I would always just be so excited in this restaurant. And I would jump up on the table and start dancing to the music, and I think that was the beginning. I had a reunion of sorts with Polynesian dance right there. It just was activated, and I responded. And from there, the next step was when I was 5, I began officially taking classes. And out of all the choices, jazz, tap, ballet, gymnastics, my mom said that I chose Hawaiian dance at 5.
Wow.
That's,
wow.
That's all I wanted to do. And I didn't want to listen to any other choices. She said I was just headstrong with Hawaiian. And so that was my path. And I started at 5, and I went for many years, just passionate about it. I advanced quickly. I picked it up easily. I recognized it. I was in love with all the aspects, the music, the musicality, the choreography was just so attractive to me, the storytelling quality, the costuming, the colors, the beads, the ornamentation, the everything. And mostly my teacher was like a goddess. And all the little girls in the studio just would just look at her in awe. I mean, she just, the way she moved was so heavenly and so powerful at the same time. And she always had a smile on her face. She always exuded this energy of aloha to everyone. And most of the students in her studio, I would say, 80 to 90% of the students were non-Hawaiian. We were Caucasian and African American and all other cultures, but we were all drawn to her and this dance. So then we moved, my family moved, and I moved away from the studio, and I thought I was gonna keep my dance training going by finding a studio in the new town that we moved to, but that didn't happen. So I moved into doing cheerleading and song leading in my high school, and which I loved too, because the other part of me was I was a soulful, funky street dancer. So when I wasn't doing hula, I was in my bedroom doing all the popular dances of the day. And I don't know if anyone or you or anyone that'll listen to this knows of Soul Train and American Bandstand, but those were very popular dance shows when I was growing up. And I lived for those shows. I dressed up my outfit when I knew the show was coming on. I got in front of the TV.
You could participate.
I felt like I was performing. Yeah, I was on the show. I was like doing all the moves. And then I'd go in my room, put on my music, and then practice the moves. So between hula and contemporary dance, that was my world. So in being a song leader and cheerleader, I got to utilize that other part of myself. That contemporary funky dancer came out, and I began to choreograph dances for our performances. And I learned that I can do this. I have a natural ability to see movement that goes with music. So I really honed my skills at that. And by the time I was a senior, I pretty much had decided this is what I want to do. And so I don't know how, because I was only 17, 18 years old. I didn't know how, or even if that was a profession, but I was like, I'm going to do this. And then a lot of popular shows were on TV. I don't know if you remember Solid Gold, but they had a whole troupe of dancers that would open the show. And there were other variety shows that utilized dancers. And I thought, somehow, I'm going to find a way to get to that, to be one of those girls, to be a professional dancer. And I did, just by having that prayer constantly in my heart, by falling asleep every night, visualizing it. I manifested it. Just a few months after graduating from high school, I got my first professional job as a contemporary dancer in a big show that traveled from California to Japan. And we performed on the big stages and big hotels. And I was in seventh heaven, because we were doing all, character dance, street dance, jazz dance, lyrical dance. And in a couple of the shows, I was asked to do hula and Tahitian as a solo to allow the other dancers, time to change their outfits. So the hula was always a part. The Polynesian dance never left completely, but, at times it kind of was off to the side. So this continued, me performing and going back and forth to Japan for many years. In between my travels, I began teaching. Wherever I was living, whatever city, I would create classes, or I would approach the local dance studios to see if they needed a teacher, and they always did. So I was always teaching. I was always honing those skills when I wasn't performing. And then eventually it evolved to me just teaching and not traveling. I had my first daughter at the time, and so I was more grounded and not traveling and just focused on being a mom and promoting my teaching career. And so that's where I grew the most, was beginning to teach, because just like when I began choreographing in high school, I began to realize that I have a voice. I have something I really want to say through my dancing. And so that's what I began to perfect through my teaching. Being able to teach others dance, I began to also found my voice, my style, my expression, what it is I wanted to say through my dance, and transfer that to students who appreciated it and who really wanted to learn it. So that has been the bulk of my career in my 20s, 30s, 40s, and now 50s. Here I am. I'm still the little girl that jumped up on the table in the Polynesian restaurant. I'm her. I'm still her. I'm still doing this dance from a very instinctual, innocent place in my soul and spirit. And so that's part of the reason why I called my company Sacred Dance Path, because it really has been a path.
Yes.
From age 3 to this moment here with you. It has been a beautiful path that has allowed me to step onto it and just express myself in my own way with no constrictions, just a very free form expression of this beautiful dance that I believed has called me to it. And I received it. And now I'm a practitioner of it. And I really consider it a ministry of sorts, that I can minister this beautiful dance to women and children. And so in a nutshell, that's kind of like my dance story.
And I think that's the natural evolution too, or hopefully it would be, that as children you have the experience, and then as teenagers you vary that experience, and then you do it and you mature into it, and then become a teacher to teach the next generation. So you've had that beautiful unfolding like that. That's rare also, I think. I think a lot of times women don't really come into these things till later in life. And yes, it changes, but to have that original experience. Do you have any Hawaiian background? I mean, is your family or anything? Or, I mean, it's interesting that you chose hula. Is it genetically in your genes somehow, or?
That's part of the uniqueness, I would say, of my story. I mean, there's a lot of facets that I haven't mentioned, but one of the facets is that I am not Hawaiian, and I don't have any connection historically or ancestrally to the Hawaiian culture. I was actually adopted. So my birth family is Mexican and Italian. and my adoptive family is Caucasian. So no one, neither family has anything. So the way I've thought about it and interpreted that is that I must be related spiritually. There's something in me that is just related either in a soulful fashion or a spiritual fashion to the Hawaiian culture. And there's a saying that I made up recently that really seems to fit, not just for me, but even other women that I work with that are Caucasian or of other nationalities other than Hawaiian. And the saying goes, those who are drawn to hula are being called to hula. And so I feel, that this dance that I do, I see it as a person, an alive being. And it searches, like a searchlight. It searches for a willing heart. And when it finds one, that spotlight stops on that person, on that heart, and it calls them in to this beautiful world of dance. And so I must have had the heart, or there's something in me that needed what is in the Hawaiian culture, and in particular, the dance of the culture. Either way, there's some type of reciprocal relationship that I have where it knew I needed it. And so it came and got me at age 3. And as I've grown and matured over the years, I've really been also learning about my relationship with hula and the Hawaiian culture. And now at 55, I realize that many of my teachings, the things I've needed to learn in terms of my character, values, how to be with people, treat people, honor people, respect and love for the land, all of these principles and values I've learned through the hula and through being on this path and having to do research and coming upon new music and having to research lyrics and translations, and all the learning I've done has really developed me into the person I needed to be as a woman, as a human being. And so no, there's no background, but I think I just had a heart for it. My heart was open and willing. And really, that's all that's needed, because, anyone can do this dance. You don't have to be Hawaiian. It's just, like I said, there's a posture in a person's heart. And that's what's needed to step into this beautiful movement.
And I think sometimes you have an objectivity or a different perspective, because I have a similar experience having come to the Middle East. I didn't mention that we're exactly opposite each other on the earth. You're in Hawaii and I'm in Egypt, and if you put a string through the center of the earth, we would be at either ends of those. It's a very strange relationship. I don't know why I looked into all of that at some point in time, but I did anyway. I think there's a big Isis cult in Isis, the goddess Isis cult in Hawaii. This is how I got to that information. But anyway, whatever. I came into Middle Eastern type dance, Middle Eastern and Far Eastern dance in this sacred dance, and the same thing. I have no genetic connection. I suppose I do now, only because I've been here more than half my life, but Yeah, it's a very strange thing, but I do think it gives you a perspective that other people who have grown up with it don't have. They maybe have a different familiarity with it, but for me, like with Middle Eastern dance or belly dance, which is similar to the dance I do, I think I saw things that other people didn't, just because they had been around it all their lives and maybe they just couldn't see it. It was too close to them or something. So I do think that having a bit of objectivity does give you a different perspective, and maybe even to appreciate it in a completely different way that someone who's been around it all their lives doesn't necessarily, maybe they take it for granted or something. So yeah, I think there's a benefit in all of it, I suppose. It's a different perspective and a different way to enter into the process. But are there a lot of, I mean, I'm still curious about this. Sorry to keep pressing this
No,
point, but are there a lot of Polynesian restaurants in California? I mean, is that a popular thing? Because
no.
in my childhood, I lived on the East Coast, and I'm
Uh-huh.
pretty sure that there wasn't even one Polynesian restaurant anywhere there that I ever heard of. So I'm just curious as to that. That sounds to me like you were just dropped into something.
Yep.
And okay, so it is that unique as it
It
sounds.
is
Yeah.
very unique. It is, my whole life, from even being given up for adoption, everything began there. I was always kind of adopted in to
Wow.
situations. And really, that's one of my themes is
Yeah.
I'm like the uncommon, unlikely person. And here I am in this group. And so, that's how it was. And the neighborhood, the area that I lived was predominantly Latino or Hispanic, Latin, Mexican people, 90%. I mean, it was just that whole area, East
Wow.
LA. And so here's this Polynesian restaurant just sticking out. And parents,
Waiting for you.
my parents loved to go there.
Wow.
It was fun inside. They had fake flowers everywhere, and they had it all decorated with, the walls were bamboo, and the lights were dim, and they had just, it was cool. It was fun. And so they would love to go there. And that was kind of like where seeds were planted in me. My parents were being instinctual. Spirit was leading them to lead me into my future, which is what, our job sometimes as parents is to do, is to help guide our offspring into their future and let them go. And so I could not have been adopted by two other people than the ones, my parents, Marvin and Virginia. They saw in me, they had vision. God put me with the perfect parents, and they saw early the seeds of dance in me. And my mom championed my path. She was the one that hunted out that first dance studio, drove me down there, let me have the choice on what dance I was going to choose. And from then on, all of my memories of my mom have been just her driving me 2, 3, 4 times a week to class, sitting there, encouraging me, and making all of my costumes, because all of our costumes were handmade. So I have these visions of her sitting up late at night in the rocking chair, sewing my Tahitian skirts, and her and my brother gluing on beads to my headdress, and just year after year. And I still have those costumes.
Wow.
And I And these were made in the 70s and they're still holding up. I have my Tahitian belts that I wear for my classes that I teach. And those tassels are still on. I'm like, wow, these are, these are classics,
Yeah. And it
but
was a different life. I think, thank you for saying that, because I had a similar path. I was a competitive ice skater, but same thing. My mother, drove me and made my costumes and whatever. So yes, I think we owe a lot to those people who supported us.
and believed in us because, belief has an energy. And I for some reason, it's like I needed it to be in this particular family with these parents because they had such a belief in me, which propelled me to believe in myself. And, I did. I knew. I remember being in high school thinking, I'm done with high school. I'm ready to go. I was ready to start my career, but I was too young. I couldn't. I was 16, 17 years old. But I had this belief that I could do it when I got older. And so I attribute all that to the love and passion that my parents had for me. That is my roots, that set me on my path. So,
Yeah, and allowing you to unfold
yes.
in the way that you needed to do that. So let's talk a little bit more about Polynesian dance as a template for spiritual enrichment. Let's talk about the actual Polynesian dance. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, Polynesian dance it can really encompass all of the Polynesia, all the islands, not just Hawaii, but Tahiti, Samoan, Maori, all of the islands fall within Polynesia, and they all have Polynesian dance, and they're all very similar, very, very similar. They're considered relatives.
Is
And
hula specific to Hawaii? I mean, is that like a specific type of Polynesian dance?
yes, hula is the dance expression of the Hawaiian culture. And so I grew up learning all of them in the studio that I was training with. We did Hula, Tahitian, Samoan, and Maori dancing. And now I just hone in on Hula and Tahitian, and occasionally I incorporate different other aspects of other Polynesian dance, as well as contemporary dance. But yeah, Hula and Tahitian is my main focus, and it really is a lifestyle. This type of dance, it is the reflection of the islands. It is the historical dance. This was the way that the Hawaiian people recorded their stories, and their history was through dance. And I know that's similar in other cultures as well. But many of the dances of the Hawaiian culture are done about places, people, the royalty, the kings and the queens. All of these things are documented in the dances. And they're very old. These are traditional dances that have been passed down for hundreds of years. But then there's also contemporary hula, where there's new dances being developed and new music about some of the new leaders of the day and new locations and experiences. And many of the dances are done just about nature, in honoring the ocean and the land, and what we call aloha aina, which is the love for the land and trees and flowers. And then you have dances that are done about love. You know, many of the hula is about love and passion and family. So it's just, it's beautiful. The music is wonderful. And then the movement itself, you know, the style of movement of Polynesia, of all the islands, is very similar because it's the swaying of the hips, the movement of the hands, speaking with hand gestures and telling story through hands. So you have the hands, you have the movement of the hips. The Hawaiians believe that the center of the universe is in your belly button, is your gut, or the na'au is what they call it, na'au. And so all the movement comes from the core of the body. And so you have the swaying and the gestures of the hips, the bent knees. So, you know, you're low to the ground, you know, dancing low to the earth. And many dances are done sitting on the earth, and then speaking with the hands. But I think the main aspect of the dance is the heart. And so, you know, dancing with the aloha, and the aloha is the love we have inside of our body for the land, for other people, for keeping our stories alive. So when you put all of that together, the hips, the bent knees, the hand gestures, dancing with the love and aloha in our heart, you know, that really makes up the hula. So, you know, my version of hula is not so much set in the ancient form, but I kind of teach a contemporary form of hula, taking the basics and the fundamentals of the ancient form and bringing it into contemporary day using contemporary hula music. So others who don't have any Hawaiian background or have never experienced hula, I really make it accessible to everyone. So yeah, it's beautiful and it's very fulfilling.
And with the storytelling aspect of it, how is that done? Are there specific gestures for, or is somebody telling the story while you dance? I mean, is it similar to the Indian? I know there's an Indian type of dance that's very much about storytelling, and there's very specific gestures that go with certain words or whatever. Is that how the storytelling is done, or is it how does one tell a story with hula? Yeah.
Well, you know, it's the music and it's the lyrics and then the movement together. You know, it's the dancer is interpreting
Okay.
the story.
So there is a spoken aspect or a
Yes.
verbal aspect to it.
Yes, but there's
Okay.
not one move that you could only use. For instance, you know, for flower, you know, a very traditional way to show flower with your hands would be here, you know, mimicking a flower bud. But there's little variations on that of how you may want to, you know, show it this way, or just, you know, traditionally lifting your flower, or pua is how you say it in Hawaiian. So there's, you know, there's several different hand gestures that you can use to interpret a thing or to interpret anything. But the interpretation quality is really the main aspect of hula, is telling story. The way I describe it is, you know, it's, you are writing on paper. You know, this is your words, you know, speaking. You know, your gestures is your writing. and the music is kind of like the paper. So, you know, hula, there really is no hula without interpretation, because that's the dancer's job. You know, as a practitioner, you're a storyteller. You know, there's a big storytelling aspect. And whenever I set out to dance, I'm always asking, what am I saying? Am I saying it in the best way? Is there another hand gesture I can use to best describe this place or feeling or word? So, you know, interpretation, you know, it is big. It's everything in the hula. But, you know, we're also speaking through our body. It's not just the hands, although the hands are the main.
So dance speak. That's telling the story with your hands. And is that, I mean, is that done with body movement, or is that the one that's seated that you were mentioning? Some of them are seated.
Both. You know, it's both. There are two types of dances. You know, one is a hula noho, which means sitting hula. And then, you know, dancing up, but with a bent knee, because, you know, again, the earth is always involved in this dance, you know, the connection with the earth. So, but either way, you know, either form of dance, and both of them are so fulfilling, you know, there's some dances that I feel like I just need to sit and do this. And that's how, you know, a sitting dance will come about, when I feel like I just really want to convey the message with the mana or the power of my hands, and just let my hands and my heart speak. Then I'll sit for a dance. And really, you know, the dance kind of tells me how it wants to be given. And I have some dances that I do both ways. You know, some dances that I can perform sitting, and some that I can perform moving and standing. I mean, it really just depends on my intuition about it, and or what the dance might be telling me. Some performances and venues may call for me a more intimate expression of the dance. So I'll sit. That way I can focus on the hand gesture and really speaking from my heart and delivering a message. And other venues may call for me to move across the stage and deliver the message to the audience, in that way. So it's really an instinctual process that I use, and it's fun. You know, it's fun to have this communication with the dance, and choose.
And to let it come through in the way it needs to. I think
Exactly.
people have preconceived ideas. This dancing seated and without moving was something that came through for me, mainly because we were doing a tour and going to the temples, and we were not allowed to do singing and movement and things in the temples. So it challenged me to find a whole new way to do dance that was without actually moving in space, but to do it in another way of more energetically moving, and or moving with a lot of stillness, or not to be perceived as moving. Or anyway, it challenged me. And I think, and that was a good thing, because
Yep.
there are infinite ways to do something. And I think it's almost like intoning, like you build the potential for something without really moving it. So it's so I can imagine that yours is a similar experience.
And, you know, I've had the opportunity to teach seniors. And I've, every door that opens or has opened for me has taught me a new way of sharing this dance. And so when the door opened for me to teach seniors, I had to go deeper. I was like, okay, how do I do this? And many of them couldn't stand. So I thought, chair hula. There's got to be a way for people who can't be upright to still retrieve and receive the benefits from this. So I've worked with many people just sitting across from one another and leading them into the aloha, leading them into the hula, strictly through teaching about the heart light, the aloha heart light, which I know we'll speak of in a few minutes, and connecting that aloha heart light with hand gesture, with interpretation. And so this allows people who can't stand in dance, it allows them still a way to participate and to receive this beautiful feeling and prayer of hula. So there's always a way, sacred dance finds a way.
Yes, you just have to be creative. There's always another way. So you mentioned aloha. So let's go into that a little bit. What is aloha, or the teachings of aloha?
Well, aloha goes hand in hand with the dance of the Hawaiian culture. Aloha is a state of mind. It is their value system. It is their spirituality. It's everything. It is, I don't think the hula or the dance of the Hawaiian people could exist without the aloha. The aloha is the fuel. It is the fire. It is the love that fills every gesture, every movement. Without the aloha, it's just an empty thing. It's just dance. It's just movement without meaning. So, aloha is.
But what does aloha mean? Is it spirit? I mean, someone told me it means compassion or love, or is it the divine, or? Yeah.
So if you break up the word in half, the literal meaning, alo, A-L-O, refers to our connectedness, what the Hawaiian culture consider, or they phrase it as mutuality. We move in mutuality. Even if we're not together, we're connected. There is no person here on earth that is so separate that they're not connected to anyone. I mean, even when you're alone in your home, you still are connected to the world at large. You have people that helped you get to where you are. So you could choose to be alone. You work with people, you are raised by people. So we are connected. You are me, and we are one. So there's there's a sense and a knowing of always being connected. Wherever we go, any moment of the day, we're looking out for one another. We're peeking out the curtain to see if our neighbor is okay. There's always an alertness of other people. So that's the alo part. And then ha, H-A, refers to the breath. Our divine breath, which is a gift. To wake up and breathe every day is just phenomenal, and it's the breath of God. And so when you connect our mutuality and breath, and you bring those meanings together, you have aloha. So traditional greeting of aloha is connecting foreheads. So when you meet someone, you hold onto their shoulders and connect foreheads and exchange breath. So you have your mutual connecting and the exchange of divine breath. So that's the literal meaning. And there's so many interpretations of that literal meaning, but that's mine. And the traditional meaning of aloha that most people know is that aloha means hello. So when you see someone, or as I greeted you today, I said aloha. So that's the greeting for hello. And it's also the greeting for goodbye. And it also means love. So those are the traditional meanings. And then the deeper meaning is divine breath in mutuality. So, but aloha really is, it is that state of mind.
Which I suppose is what love is, isn't it?
Yes. It's, you know, when you break it down, you know, compassion, kindness, deferring to others. And, you know, a popular phrase here in the islands is kapu aloha. And so kapu aloha is, you know, it's a way of life. It's how we walk. We walk in kapu aloha, which is, you know, awareness of our surroundings, of the world, of the land, that we are stewards of all the land, wherever we walk. You know, if we're walking out to check the mail, or we're on a hike in the forest, or we're just going to the grocery store, you know, aware of the land that upholds us and is our foundation so that we can live on this earth, pursuing our dreams and our hopes and serving others. You know, we're, you know, being aware of how we're supported, how our walk is supported. And kapu aloha is reverence, you know, moving in reverence and treating others and the world gently, and thinking about others first, and right conduct. You know, kapu aloha is operating in proper conduct in all of our environments. You know, no anger, no violence, always exuding peace and love in all of our communications. So all of that, all of those teachings is kind of what I labeled as the heart light of aloha. Because when we are in kapu aloha, our heart light is on. And this is how I teach it to my children. You know, when I teach my children's classes, I always tell them, do you know you have a light in your heart? And they're all like, oh, no. And I was like, well, it goes on when you're aloha, when you're sharing your aloha, but it goes off when you're not in aloha. And they get it. They get it immediately. And I tell them at the end of class, now go and share your heart light of aloha and share it with everyone you can. And they do, and they come back the next week with their testimonies. I'm like, how did you share your aloha? Did you share your heart light? Did your heart light go off this week? And they're so honest, you know, I got angry at my brother and my heart light went off. Or I accidentally stole a candy. Like, well, did you put it back? And they say, yeah, well, then your heart light went back on, you know? So at its simplest, that's how I would describe it. But it really is true, you know, and I've had some people come up to me like, you know what, you're glowing, you know, during class. It's like, I saw a light around you. And I'm like, well, that's, you know, I don't take credit for that. You know, that's the heart light. That's God. That's God smiling with aloha. And I think that is available for all of us. And so that's a big part of my teachings, because the dance, the hula, you know, like I said, can't exist without the aloha. And so I incorporate these teachings, these principles, these values, or morals, if you will. It's a way, you know, it's a way of being and thinking and feeling. And when you dance with that aloha, with those concepts, then I think you have sacred dance.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I think that aloha is what makes your dance sacred.
Yes,
To
exactly.
put your finger on it, I think that's a really good explanation of sacred dance.
Yes, it's the intention and it's the posture of your heart because, you know, I think that I've always been a sacred dancer. And, you know, there were times I didn't even know it. But I used to be a go-go dancer in the big nightclubs in Los Angeles and Orange County, and not doing hula, but doing street dancing and just freestyle movement to really loud music for hundreds of people. And I was up on a pedestal or podium with a spotlight on me, and I would just go like for an hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours, just wind me up. And I was just like this dancing freestyle, but it was the most sacred experience, one of them, the most sacred experiences I've ever had. And while I was dancing, I never felt like, oh, you know, this is so cool, I'm just going to do flashy moves and have a good workout. I was thinking like, this is church. This is, and I used to feel like I was transported to another world, which, you know, I believed was heaven. You know, this was like a spiritual experience and it was sacred to me. And I sometimes would just be so deep in prayer as I was dancing and dripping sweat that I would forget where I was. And when my session or my time was over and I went backstage and I had time to reflect, I felt like, wow, what just happened? So it was, you know, I was always going for the sacred in my dance, always, no matter what style it was or what the show or situation was. I always stepped into it as if I was going to make a difference. This was going to be really meaningful, and I wanted to touch people. So, you know, I'm still doing it today.
But I think that's probably because of the connection that you had from the beginning. I mean,
Yeah,
that was your exposure to it, was
that
as
was
a sacred practice. Some people really have to look for that and try to find it, but once you found it, maybe you never lose it as well, or you can always get back to it, I think.
yes. Yes, that's very true. It was my foundation. So the roots were set when, you know, my mom took me to my first class and I chose hula. That was like my tilling the soil. That was like, it was setting my foundation. It was planting my roots in. And because, you know, when I was in my 20s and 30s and I was doing street dancing, my own version of funk and hip hop, when I was choreographing, I always came from a place of hula. Even though the movement wasn't hula, it's like my creativity or my creative process and the dances I put together were very much, I can see the influence of the Hawaiian culture because my dances were always interpretive. Even though I wasn't doing the hula hand, I was doing other hand interpretation. I was doing like jazz hands, you know, and fists, but I was always listening
A
to the
different
lyrics.
message, yeah.
You know, the message, the songs I chose were always very positive, but it had that funky beat to it. And when I choreographed, I was like, okay, I got to interpret this. You know, I got to use my hands, you know, because that's my signature. That was like my thing was a lot of hand interpretation, even in my street dancing. And then there was always a floor section. So I'd get my dancers on the ground and we would just sit and we would do like funky arms. And I'm like, that's the Hawaiian, you know, that's my Polynesian roots. So I would use these what I call Polynesian patterns in, or templates of movement, and I would put that onto my contemporary dance. And so yeah, there was a lot of, it was very grounded. The choreography was very grounded. I wasn't like a ballerina where I did a lot of uplifting things. It was very low, a lot of undulation and hand interpretation. That's what I used to do. And I realized, you know, people may look at it and not see Hawaiian or Polynesian in it, but I knew that that's where it was coming from. And
And
then
maybe they felt it, even if they didn't understand it, they may have gotten the message anyway.
maybe, yeah.
Well,
So
that sounds wonderful. Your dance and your journey sound wonderful. And I hope that you have some events coming up. So tell us about those so that people can connect with you and possibly have this experience through you or
sure,
with you.
sure. I've have a program that I do. It's relatively new, but it's called Global Aloha Hula. And it's my online offering. And so I have created this weekly online dance class for women so they can step into this hula as well. I feel like my mission is to be the ambassador of aloha, the ambassador of hula, especially to women who are non-Hawaiian like myself and who have a craving to move their body in this very indigenous way, to feel the aloha, to move their hips, and to tell story with their hands. So I've created this class. It's a beginner level. We meet on Tuesdays online via Zoom, and I have women in Italy and Canada and Germany, and of course the States, the mainland, and we all meet to do this dance. Now, some of the time zones don't work out, so I have a group of women that still participate through the video replay. So I am offering this course. It's ongoing. We go in 8-week sessions throughout the year. So they can find out more information about that on my website. And then next month, the end of November, I am going to be speaking about my work, about this dance and about this aloha on the Big Island. So I'm on the island of Maui. So I'm going to be traveling to the Big Island to the Women Rocking Business Retreat, which is being held at the Mauna Kea Hotel. And it's a big weekend retreat, hundreds of women. And I'm so excited to have a 20-minute spot to speak about sacred dance embodiment through hula. And then I'm going to get the ladies up and do a little 5-minute audience participation. I'm going to get them moving their hips. I'm going to get them, moving their hands and show them how they can embody this and experience it as well. And then off on the horizon in 2020, I have a lot of exciting things coming, but one of the major events coming is that I'm going to be teaching my first retreat along with my creative cohort, Faith Rivera, who she's an amazing songwriter, songstress. She has her own original music, but she is from Hawaii. And so she has Hawaiian music as well. And I use her music to accentuate my class and my choreography for many years. So we've worked together a lot. And so she and I, together with her music and my movement, we are going to have a women's retreat in Canada, in Calgary. It's going to be, I believe, a 4-day women's retreat of aloha and hula. And so we're working on the details with that right now. We don't have a title yet. That's how new this is. So we're working on the title and the programming and the curriculum. But the dates are going to be March 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th, I believe, of 2020. So as soon as we have all the details on that solidified, I'll be promoting that. And I am also putting together right now another program, an online program called Lead with ALOHA. So this dance program will be for leaders. It's going to be for women, business owners, women who have their own businesses or lead their own programs, who want to incorporate some of these powerful teachings of ALOHA and some of the simple body movement or sacred movement that they could add into their, first of all, their own lives to empower their work as leaders, to illuminate their work, but also to share with some of their clients as well. So it's simple ways that they can incorporate the ALOHA into their life. So I'm busy. I have a lot going on. You know,
Yes, you do. And a lot of new things.
I have a lot of new things, and I just, you know, I wake up in a state of gratitude and aloha that I can really be at this place in my life. And, you know, my current situation is just so connected to the 3-year-old me. And I think about it every day. And I have a picture, I have 2 pictures. I have a picture of me at the age 5 doing this move. And then I have a picture of me today that I was taken about a year ago, and I'm doing the same move. It's like, and I put them together. I was like, wow, this is, if I ever forget, I'll look at this so that I can be reminded that this is my path and this is my service, is to lead women onto this sacred path of aloha so that their lives can be enriched. So, so I'm grateful and I'm thankful for my work, as well as this moment here with you, Leslie, that I could share about my journey and hopefully inspire women. You know, that's my heart really leans to inspire women to maybe if they've never danced, to say, you know what, I think I can do this. I think this dance might be accessible for me. And it really is a spiritual practice. So, you know, women will be blessed just to take that one step in and say, I'm going to try sacred dance.
It couldn't hurt. That's what this summit's all about as well, is to expose people to sacred dance, because I think it is accessible.
It is.
And you just need to try it. You just need to try some form, and the door will open, I think.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
And you also have a free gift for our listeners. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, I'm so excited. It is called The Heartlight of ALOHA. And so my free gift is a PDF download, and it is a little poster that the women or the listeners here can print out and frame in a beautiful frame and put up. And it's the 7 principles. I mean, there's more, but I picked 7 of the most prominent and important principles of ALOHA. And so that they can read them and pray with them and meditate and contemplate on these aspects. And these principles of the Heartlight of ALOHA, these are the teachings that I incorporate into my classes. These are the principles that I ask my students to hold in their heart and to think about as we're dancing. So these are dance principles. These are very beautiful values that, I mean, there's so much you could do with them. You know, you can apply them to life and to dance. So, you know, they go back and forth. And to me, I see life and dance as one. You know, the dance of life, life is dance, it's all one. So, you know, for instance, one of the principles is, you know, breathe as deep as you want to dance. So, you know, the breath, or in Hawaiian, we say hanu. You know, the hanu is connected to your dance. You know, the deeper you breathe, the deeper is your dance. So that's one of the principles that I like to teach in my courses and lead the women into applying to their lives. So the viewers here, you have a free gift. You have a PDF to download with these beautiful principles of aloha.
Yes. So take advantage of that. The link is on the page. Well, thank you, Karyne. Thank you for being here with us and speaking to us and sharing all your wisdom and your beautiful journey.
Thank you. Thank you, Leslie, so much. It's been so fun. And any opportunity I have to talk about this is a privilege. So I want to thank you for the opportunity.
You're welcome. And thank you to the listeners for being here, and be sure to download that PDF. All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Aloha.